Hello, everyone, and it's a great pleasure for me to be here, a great honor, and also with a lot of emotion. I do remember that I think the last Financial Inclusion Asia conference I attended was actually 2 years ago in Bangkok, the AFIFORUM, so it's bringing us back. I'm going to be very honest with you. I haven't been working a lot on financial inclusion over the past 24 months. It so happens that in my new role at Incofin, I was given the task to develop our new investment impact strategy into the space of access to drinking water. Rest assured, I'm not going to tell you all about my discoveries about the drinking water space. But why am I saying this? Is because I feel that over the past 24 months, as I was talking to drinking water stakeholders, as I was kind of trying to understand the features of this sector, and I was noticing the nature of how scattered the sector still is, as I couldn't help noticing as well how it was still heavily dependent on subsidized funding, and that there was now a growing need for blended finance solutions such as the one we hope to develop. Just kept occurring to me that it made me feel and it made me think of a financial inclusion sector 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And I'm saying all this because I feel you would all agree with me. Today, there is not one single day where we open a newspaper or listen to news or read something on the internet that tells us about a corporation or a mainstream asset manager or classic investor just telling you about their new ESG strategy or this new sustainability approach. And it's a great news. I think philosophically something has just unlocked itself and we should just be happy about this. I think we'll finally be able to explain our jobs to much more people. So that gives me joy. But oftentimes when you scratch the surface and really try to understand what are they talking about in this new ESG impact strategy, you realize that it's a lot of claims and there's oftentimes not a lot of true impact measurement or management systems already put in place. It's got me thinking, and I thought at the end of the day, I keep using that metaphor now, but I feel that we, the financial inclusion stakeholders, we're probably the grandmothers of the impact investment sector as a whole. And as any grandmother, I don't know if that's your experience as well, but for me, I love talking to elderly people because they have this kind of detachment and calmness, fruit of the depth of the years of experience and wisdom. And oftentimes also when you get to talk to them a little bit more intimately, you realize that they have scars and traumas and regrets and things that they had thought they had done differently. So I'm saying all this because it feels dear to my heart that I've got the privilege to actively work for almost 2 decades in financial inclusion and now discover the investment readiness patterns of other more nascent and younger impact sector. I feel like our sector has potentially some lessons or some messages that we should share to the broader impact investment community, whether there are family offices just entering the space 2 days ago, or whether there are long-term development financial institutions trying to rethink their strategy. And I've been thinking about, what could be the kind of core things that I think are key and important and that we've drawn as key conclusions of our industry. And I'd like to share a few of those in the upcoming minutes with you guys. I think the first one is when I entered this space again in financial inclusion, I do remember vividly the fact that we were fighting the traditional concept of shareholder capitalism, and we were convinced that stakeholder capitalism was the way forward. And within all the stakeholders group, I think our industry has proven that there's one key stakeholder that we should always put on the paramount of everything we do, the end client. We are, I think, an industry that does not get satisfied with just showing our impact by putting some nice outreach numbers or smiling clients. We are an industry that has proven that yes, we can go beyond understanding our end clients' personas. Yes, we know how to conduct outcome surveys. Yes, we don't satisfy ourselves just by saying, oh, we enrolled that client for micro-saving products. We go one step deeper and we ask ourselves, is that client actually using that saving? Same for microinsurance. I always question when I see those big microinsurance coverage numbers. Okay, but did people actually use the claim rights? What's the percentage? Did they know how to claim? I think all these aspects we've been, and we're still learning and doing a lot of mistakes, but I think we have a wealth of experience that we need to share with the rest of the other impact investor sectors. Understand your end clients, how they feel, what they want, how they use our products. Let's never assume that we understand their profiles. Linked to this, I think that we would all agree that most of the people that we try to help and target are vulnerable. And by essence, vulnerability means that they need additional type of protections. In our industry, we did not just stop there. We went as far as developing actual objective processes, which were called the client protection principles. In this regard, I want to pay a special tribute to the simplification and harmonizing work that the Social Performance Task Force, that the group, the Social Auditor Series, have done when they took over the great work done by the SMART campaign. They took this very potentially intimidating client protection principle certification and then transformed it into a much more approachable CPP pathway. It is our duty today as investors to continue pushing for the requirement of all our investees to engage into this CPP pathway, whatever the level of maturity on these protection topics are. When I look at the mature markets of East Asia, where I used to be a young debt investment manager. I look at now what some of our investees and clients have become. My heart is both broken and filled with joy. It's broken because oftentimes I've noticed that when you pick the batch of leading MFIs that made it, that became investment ready, a group of them decided that now, because it was so much easier for them to access traditional capital markets, and that these capital market guys were not asking them anything about client protection principle, they dropped the ball. Meanwhile, my heart is filled because I also see that other leading institutions with the same luxury of not being able to avail to 3% USD debt funding, way cheaper than I can even offer, they still decided to keep the concept of client protection principle high on their agenda. And I think we should pay tribute to the people who decided to take that decision. The second key lesson that I think I want to draw is the importance, I think, of us pushing over and over our investees and ourselves to be employers of choice. I think we all agree that in all the emerging markets where we operate, labor laws are very simple. There's not a lot of requirements attached to them. I think it's our duty to push the envelope further. It is now, I think, recognized, and COVID has even pushed that conversation faster, that why shouldn't we have medical and accident insurance for all our field staff? Let's plug the numbers, see how our operating cost looks like. Well, let's have those conversations. Similarly, I think we are now much more mature in our conversations around diversity, inclusivity, including gender. I remember when I was, again, a young debt investment manager, oftentimes hearing some CEOs telling me, yeah, most of our clients are female, but most of our loan officers are male. The ladies, it's hard for them to travel under the sun. I think that conversation has drastically shifted. Yes, there are still some traditional barriers, and every society has its own kind of approach to these concepts. But I think we are, again, in a mature industry where all of us can see female treasury managers, female marketing managers, female senior managers in general. We need to continue nurturing that diversity in those institutions despite the obstacles that these institutions might be facing in the societies where they operate. And the question comes, how many female CFOs do we know? How many female CEOs do we know? How many female board members do we know? Not that many. And we ourselves, the impact asset managers, when we go back to our headquarters, do we have those conversations? Do we look around and have those meaningful, open, respectful conversations about the importance of diversity all the way up from our board, our investment committees, our risk committees, all the way to our debt investment officers? My third conclusion, or lessons that I drew for myself and hopefully for our industry, is I think we managed to prove the importance of putting good governance at the service of a double bottom line or even a triple bottom line strategy. In every company that I invested equity through the funds that Incofin gave me the mandate to invest from, I sat as a member of a board level ESG or impact committee, either because these committees existed already or because in the shareholder agreement we demanded that we would create them after our investment. These conversations proved to me that you can talk about impact in an objective manner. We were not some tree huggers people just talking about well-intended type of social initiatives. We were talking about staff retention, multiple borrowing, client usage, gender bias. And all this were equally professional and expert conversations that we could then bring back to the board the similar way that the board then was talking about those social and environmental aspects along with solvency, NPL, ROE. I think today we have a duty as experts in the ESG and impact space to all equip ourselves with the right set of existing objective skills when it comes to impact measurement and impact management. Whatever your job description is, your senior private equity investment manager, your debt investment manager, your risk person, it is not okay now just to say, oh, the ESG conversation, I'll send my ESG colleague. We need all of us to at least have certain basic understandings in order to be able to push those conversations and help our investees continue to develop meaningful, balanced triple bottom line strategies. My last, I guess, lessons or message will be that I think we continue to have a role to play in maintaining the industry conversation live and advocating towards asset owners, which again might be very young at discovering our sectors. We have a mandate and a duty to explain to them what is responsible return. We have a mandate and a duty to explain to them what is a responsible exit. I dream of a day where, when all these asset owners are looking at where to invest, we would not be us, the impact asset managers, competing with sending around our splashy annual report. We would be judged by, and it's the case already, we would be judged by our audited financial statements of our funds, showing our true return. But importantly, we would also be judged by audited social and environmental statements, a set of principles and indicators that will be common and standardized for all. So nobody can hide anymore by saying, oh, I don't track this, but I track that. It's a bit similar, but you can't really compare. I think we need to reach that moment where we can be compared, when we can allow asset owners to decide for themselves, given their risk appetite, given their impact philosophy and sensitivity, where do they want to invest? And we as impact asset managers need to play that role of transparency. I call therefore for a healthy and friendly competition among all asset managers involved in the impact space, but I call as well for a constructive coordination to allow the wisdom of our financial inclusion grandmother to continue to be shared and for her to continue smiling. Thank you so much. I think you're on mute.